Indy drivers, start your engines.
And engines firing up down here on pit lane. Time to go racing with the Cooper Tires USF 2000 Championship. I'll head back to the tower. For now, sending it up to John Fippen.
Thanks so much, Rob Howden, as the engine's coming to life here on the pit straightaway as the finale of the 3-race weekend for the USF 2000 drivers, as they are getting ready to crank it up here for the final time this weekend. We had 2 great races, but it's been the Miles Rowe show as he has been able to take the win in back-to-back rounds, notching his 3rd and 4th wins on the season here this weekend, and stretching his points lead as Michael D'Orlando not having the finish he would like in the last 2 races. Chase Denmark strongly on the podium. Billy Frazier also having a good weekend as these drivers working their way out of the pit lane, and they'll head around behind the safety car and come to the start here on the front straightaway. Michael D'Orlando on the pole with Miles Rowe, the 2-time winner this weekend, in 2nd spot. Chase Denmark and Nikita Johnson. Nikita, the highest placed rookie in the qualifying order, will start outside of row 2. Dylan Christie and Lockie Hughes. Lockie having a troubled weekend, certainly showing great pace, finishing on the box in the first race, but unfortunately a post-race tech inspection failure caused him to lose that position. Billy Frazier, a great recovery drive in race 1. Thomas Naveau in that 8th spot. Christian Weir and Bijoy Garg rounding out row number 5. Jagger Jones, 3rd-generation racer and a rookie in the series, alongside Jacob Douglas in the 90 car. As we are getting ready, as they're working their way down into turn number 4 behind the safety car.
Once again, the long run from pit lane and the command and driver introductions to the booth here at Mid-Ohio. Rob Howden alongside my guest that we will bring in a little later, Simon Sykes, as the drivers work their way to Thunder Valley. Time to go racing. D'Orlando and Rowe in the front row. Michael D'Orlando needs a race win. Got to get himself back into the championship fight. Couple of wins for Rowe already. Field coming out of the final corner, and we are punching off. Green, green, green. Aaron Likens throwing the green flag. And underway into turn number 1 for the first time. Great shot of the Cooper Tire Bridge. And the lead that D'Orlando was hoping for. Playing out through 1. Got to hold it through 2, and you got to hold it through 4. He'll run the bottom side of the racetrack. He'll go wide. Here comes a move from further back. The 2 Paps cars sliding into 2nd and 3rd. Rowe and Denmark. Billy Frazier, I believe, up to 4th spot. Good start for Billy Frazier to P4. Again, he's trying to get himself back in the fight here as well. Nikita Johnson, the number 17, going off in turn number 2, but able to get back onto the racetrack. So Johnson, who had started in the 4th position, having an issue on the opening lap. He'll find himself back at the tail of the field, putting his head down, trying to work his way back forward. Does have the speed to potentially close up to the tail of the grid and get a couple of spots here. Side by side through turns number 4, 5, and 6. Lots of people still out there enjoying the action here. 2 road Indy races for you to cap off the day. USF 2000 followed by Indy Pro. Michael D'Orlando doing what he needs to do on the opening lap, holding back the advances of Miles Rowe. But you have to believe in Miles Rowe's head. I've got 2 race wins. I just pulled out the point lead. Even if I finish 2nd here, mission accomplished on this weekend here at Mid-Ohio. I've done what I have to do with 5 more races still to go. 2 in Toronto and a triple header at Portland on Labor Day weekend. Little contact further back there. Spike Colbecker, I believe, having to do a course adjustment mid-corner through the carousel. Good scrap here right now between Thomas Naveau and Jacob Douglas as well. That will be for 7th. Opening lap in the books. We're now underway. And that's what you're hoping for. Get through the first lap cleanly. One driver all the way off the racetrack in turn number 1. You can see the gravel up there, but able to come on cleanly. We'll try to pick up that driver as they come through here. Could be damaged, or they lose the front wing, not quite sure. We'll try to pick up that car when he comes back around here. Another driver slowing, coming out of turn number 2, and he's actually to the inside of the racetrack. That's going to be the 61 machine of Nick D'Orlando. So it's been an up-and-down weekend for D'Orlando. Tough start in race 1. He battled his way up to the top 10 in race number 2, and then finds himself at the tail of the field here now, potentially out of this race in race number 3. D'Orlando, Michael D'Orlando, his brother, leading the way right now. We'll try to figure out what other driver was involved in the incident there. Again, you see the field working their way through now, turns 8 and 9. Couple of laps into this 20-lap USF 2000 championship. Michael D'Orlando doing what he needs to do now. That stretch away a bit. The last thing he wants to see, though, is a yellow flag. And sadly, if it does come out for the issue, it would be his brother, actually, on turn number 2, who potentially came to a stop. We'll see whether or not he's been able to continue. No yellow flag at this point. So we're still racing for USF 2000. Figure out which driver was involved in the incident up top, and I think it might have been Jacob Douglas. Yeah, Douglas was the driver who went off in turn 1. Douglas off in 1 and able to come back on, but well down the order. Unsure if there's any damage to Douglas, but he has fallen from where he was and worked his way up into the 7th position. That moves Naveau to 7th, Jones up to 8th, Christian Weir and Bajoy Garg into the back part of the top 10. Field kind of settled in right now. A couple drivers dropping a wheel X in the exit of turn 2, but let's bring in now our guest here today. Joining me, Simon Sykes, who started the season racing with Legacy Autosport. That team elected to close its doors and focus next year on Indy Lights, so you're on the sideline, which I know is super tough for you. You don't want that to happen, but good to have you here, because obviously you know what's going on. Let's bring you back real quick. Hold on. Another driver's gone off the racetrack. Pick up who that is. Oh, that's Nicholas D'Orlando. Simon trying to work his way back around. I'll try to bring out the yellow flag and see if we can get back on. Great to have you with us. You've been here all weekend. You've been working with the VRD guys. I think I know a bunch of guys in Pat you've been chatting with. What's it like being here and not racing? What's kind of tough?
Always looking forward to things happening in racing. It's a tough business, so it's just time to keep my head down and start putting things together for next year. I think that this track is phenomenal for racing, and we've seen it all weekend here in this USF 2000 category with a couple drivers getting confident out front. Miles Rowe doing particularly well. Yeah. D'Orlando trying to upset that now. He had that incident in race 1, rebounded in race 2, but fell short to Miles Rowe with a nice pass over in that turn 5 section. And so now the question is, what can he do? Can he hold Rowe back for a 3rd race in a row?
Yeah, listen, you've had success here. We know that, 2-time SCCA National Championship winner, but here last year you run a run of podium finishes running for Legacy Autosport, and was on the podium here. If I were just to ask you real quickly, these guys are kind of settling in. What's the key to one key to getting around this racetrack quickly?
Momentum and flow through the back section of the track. From turns 4 to turn 9, I think that is probably the most important part in my eyes. And if you have a good flow, good line, you can carry good minimum speed, then it's going to be a fast lap.
Yeah, it feels to me in that corner, if you don't get it started correctly and in the right spot in 4 and 5, you're almost playing catch up for the rest of the until you get to Thunder Valley. And into Thunder Valley goes D'Orlando, 1.1 second the lead for him right now. Miles Rowe runs in second with the knowledge that he's going to leave here with the point lead. His teammate Jace Denmark right there in 3rd spot. You'd think there maybe a little bit of a sense of urgency for Denmark to get back in there, but as he runs P3 in the championship, still running well. Billy Fraser's 4th, trying to recover from that incident at the start of race number 2. Christie 5th, Hughes 6th, Lockie Hughes out of Australia, his debut weekend here in USF 2000. Thomas Naveau 7th, Jagger Jones 8th, Christian Weir 9th, and Bajoy Garg rounding out the top 10. Jacob Douglas and Nikita Johnson remain on the racetrack. They're going to try to see if they can't get themselves back up to Papasavas and Garcias, maybe even Anderson. They're going to keep digging, and of course would love to see a yellow flag. That's not what Michael D'Orlando wants to see out front. 1.1 second the advantage last time by. Everybody getting into a groove here right now. And Simon, does that happen in a triple header? Is there more of a sense of chaos and maybe anxiety and aggression in the opening couple of races? When you get to the end, you can kind of settle in a little bit?
Absolutely. I think that's definitely the start of the weekend. It's going to be a little more chaotic as drivers get more and more familiar with how each other race on this track. They'll tend to settle down a bit. I also see that once you get a couple laps into the race, maybe you calm down. You've got aggressive moves in the first couple of laps and lots of aggression in the last laps of the race. But in between, we're seeing drivers start to settle in here and work on their pace. race.
Yeah, and once you settle in, you find out where you are, what kind of race car you have, what kind of pace you have, as Simon had said. Again, Simon Sykes joining us here, Legacy Autosport driver for the start of the season and last year. And again, two-time SCCA National Championship runoff winner, Team USA Scholarship winner, on the sidelines right now. So if anybody out there is looking for a driver of anything, I'm sure Simon would like to jump behind the wheel. And he's a very, very talented young race car driver to Georgia. We'll come to him throughout this broadcast here. It's a second right now for D. Orlando. Nobody else kind of pulling away anywhere. Rowe slotting into the position. Denmark still running strongly there. Another driver has potentially gone off in turn number 1. We've had a number of drivers struggling through turn number 1, whether or not that driver all the way into the corner. Another driver slowing there, coming up into the corner. Not quite sure who that is at this point. We'll try to get a pickup. That may be Billy Fraser. That may have been back-to-back issues for Fraser there in that white. Yeah, I think that potentially was Fraser. Let's have a look. Yeah, it looks like Billy Fraser may have had some trouble in turn number 1. It's been tough for Fraser, no doubt about it, as he was in an incident in race number 1, and now it seems to have fallen to the tail of the field now in race number 2 behind his teammate Jacob Douglas. So the two exclusive Autosport drivers having troubles on the racetrack, both going off in turn number 1. So with their Indy Pro teammate Louis Foster getting the job done in Indy Pro, just some issues here with the exclusive Autosport USF 2000 drivers. Again, they'll be looking for that yellow flag to potentially get themselves back up. Otherwise, it's a 1-second lead for Michael D. Orlando over Miles Rowe. And a 20-lapper, we're only 5 laps in. Still a long way to go in this one. We'll look at lap times, though. Super early in the going. It's a long 20-lap race. Both drivers turning 1:23.5s up front. So that 1-second lead being held by Michael D. Orlando right now. Pretty static. Rowe, Denmark, Christie, and Hughes. Move Christie now up into 4th. Hughes up to 5th. Naveau to 6th spot. Jones to 7th. Weir up to 8th. Gargan to 9th. And Kohlbecker now 10th, as Fraser falling down to 19th. Douglas running 18th after the consecutive issues in turn number 1. In front of them, Nikita Johnson. He had an issue in turn number 2 as well. So a number of the drivers we saw in the top 10 throughout this weekend have found themselves with issues here at the start of race number 3. When you got to put your head down, you can see right now that Douglas closing up, or rather Nikita Johnson closing up on Evagores Papasavas. Oh, there's some racing right there. That is one of the D-Force drivers battling it out with a J. Howard driver development car. Trying to figure out who that may be. That may be, trying to figure, that would be Lockie Hughes potentially, and Dylan Christie, I think. Dylan Christie, the number 11, Lockie Hughes in the 7. Trying to see where those two cars are lining up. Yeah, this is him right. This is Christie and Hughes, and then Naveau and Jones. That is actually 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. Nose to tail, coming down into the carousel. Looks like Christie's doing whatever he can to keep these guys at bay. And you know, Lockie Hughes trying to find a way by, finished 2nd in the opening race, but lost that position to a post-race infraction. Simon, you're getting pressed like that. Let's say you're not quite as fast as the guys in front of you. This seems to me like a racetrack, however, that you could probably, you know, if you dig in and run a decently defensive line, not lose too much speed, you can really hold everybody at bay. It's a tough place to pass.
It is a tough place to pass. Unfortunately, there are those races where you just can't go forward, and it's a hard reality to accept at a time when you just have to dig in and start defending. This place being hard to pass, it is tough. There's turn 4. Turn 2, and not too much else around here, but it can be done, and we'll see these top 3 are starting to gap themselves, and Dylan Christie is really, really defensive from both his teammate and Lockie Hughes behind.
Let me ask you this question. One of the other things, only a set amount of tires to be able to use throughout the weekend here. This is probably the worst set of tires they've had, potentially, unless somebody kind of saved a set till the end. When you get on a track like this, so much different than testing, so much different than practice and qualifying on Friday. You've had IndyCar out here quite a bit. You had the Stadium Super Trucks out there. This track keeps changing, and then you may not have the best set of tires. What kind of a race car do these guys have right now? Is it tough to drive?
I mean, we're late afternoon. It's pretty hot out here. So I would assume the track's starting to get greasy, where the surface has gotten so hot it starts to get slick, and it's tough to find the grip. You certainly don't have the grip that you had earlier in the day. So it's going to be tough for these drivers to sort that out, but everyone's dealing with the same conditions.
8 laps down. We'll have 12 to go at the tail of the field. Douglas and Fraser trying to close up the Papa Savas. Johnson's been able to get by already. Lockie Hughes finally able to get by Dylan Christie. So all that pressure being put on Dylan Christie. You see the top 3 drivers pulling away as they come down the downhill right hand off camber keyhole. That is Lockie Hughes is now cleared. So a couple of D-Force drivers lined up in 5th and 6th, and Christie and Naveau. And then Jagger Jones right there as well with Christian Weir, Bajoy Garg, and Spike Kohlbecker. Lockie Hughes, again, that's another tough thing, Simon. The guy comes in here in his debut weekend, opening race, really hustles that Jay Howard car to the lead pack, ends up finishing in 2nd. At the end of that race was absolutely physically spent because he's never driven one of his cars for a 20-lap run, much different than the car he's driven before. He was, just totally spent, no more energy, but then to get the 2nd, the jubilation of that, then to find out later that you just missed the weight on the car. That was actually the penalty. They did not make weight, and it wasn't a ton. What does that do to a driver's psyche? How do you bounce back?
It's tough as a driver. I mean, it wasn't his fault. He drove a great race at the end of the day. His first weekend in, he came out and impressed everyone. He drove a great race, has been driving well all weekend, has been competitive all weekend. So I really hope that he can find his way back to the podium here and recover from that unfortunate race.
That's what I said to him when I went back in the paddock. I know I saw him earlier today, and I know he was absolutely gutted with what happened yesterday, but I said, listen, it was close where it was on weight, but the bottom line is you came in here and put on a show, right? You showed everybody what Lockie Hughes is made of. I know that when I talked to him at Indianapolis on the road course weekend in May, he talked about how he wanted to get into USF 2000 in 2023. That's the total goal for him now. But to be able to come in here and what he's been able to do with Jay Howard driver development, you have to feel like he's going to push even harder, knowing that he has the ability to run at least near the pointy end of the grid.
Absolutely, and he's certainly going to be one to watch in the future here. He's done well to come in, and first weekend it's tough, but he's run against some of the best drivers in the country, drivers with far more experience, and held his own as he is doing now.
Yeah, that's it. And that shows the natural talent for sure as he continues to run here in that 4th position. His lap time is very similar to those drivers in front of him, although D'Orlando and Rowe down to now 1:23.2s. Those 2 drivers really have been the class of the field throughout this weekend here at Mid-Ohio. They've been running the fastest laps. D'Orlando, even with the issue he had in race number 1, did turn the fast lap of the race. He was able to grab that 2nd place finish to Rowe earlier today in race number 1 to stop the bleeding of his point lead going away. He's going to try to dig in here and see if he can't get a win. That would close him back up a bit. Like I said, only 5 more races to go. And Spike Kohlbecker in the 33 has come to pit lane. An issue for Kohlbecker. Looks like potentially the front wing, the crew, the Turn 3 Motorsports crew going at it here for Spike Kohlbecker, trying to get him back dialed in. Not sure what it is for Kohlbecker, but he'll fall to the tail of the field as well. That's going to move Nicky Hayes up into the top 10. Hayes goes to 10th. Danny Dzelski up to 11th. Jackson Lee 12th. Garcias in 13th. Johnson 14th. Anderson 15th. Lockie Hughes pulling away a little bit there from Dylan Christie, having gotten by. Spike Kohlbecker able to get back on the track and continue as he circulates his way around. Oh, there's a driver's gone off. We have a driver off. One of the Jay Howard driver development cars has gone off, looping it very likely on the exit of turn number 4, carrying a lot of speed through there. He's gone off to the inside of the track. Let's see if he can refire. Otherwise, this is going to be a gift to a lot of people, primarily Johnson, Kohlbecker, Fraser, and Douglas, with potential opportunity. We'll have a look at the replay of the driver having trouble in turn number 4. Let's have a look at that here right now, and we'll find out whether or not the full course yellow will indeed come out. Side-by-side drivers coming through. Someone way on the outside. Down goes that left rear. You're on the power. You can see the thing spinning away, and at that point, once you do that, you are going around. It sounds like that is the number 8 machine of Danny Dzelski. Dzelski able to refire, and I don't think that we've gone full course yellow. So Dzelski able to get himself back on the racetrack. Simon, how easy is that to do when you're side-by-side with a driver like that trying to run the outside?
It's certainly easy, and this is a place where turn 4, you run it into the corner very hard. If you're going side by side with somebody, you obviously want the advantage. If you're on the outside, you're going to drive it in as hard as you can. And at the end of the day, if it's half a car width too wide, then that can happen.
And that's it. You know, the great thing about turn 4 is it's an easy pass down the inside if you can get down the inside. It's the race to the the exit point. But if a driver blocks to the inside, you can really run the outside here. There's enough grip out there. I think he was way outside Danny was way outside the grip level there. But you can run around the outside because as long as you beat them to the exit point, you're set up for the inside of turn number 5. It's a great corner, but again, like you said, you're kind of running the razor's edge depending on where you plant the car on the turn in.
Exactly. That camber in turn 4 and the banking helps you just roll more speed than really you think you should be able to. And the inside to turn 5 is certainly an excellent passing opportunity, one of our better ones on this track.
11 laps down, 9 laps remaining here for the drivers in the Cooper Tires Grand Prix of Mid-Ohio, the USF 2000 finale, part of a triple header here for this category in the road to Indy. D'Orlando, Rowe, Denmark, Hughes, and Christie, the top 5. See a number of the drivers up front, followed by the wayside a little bit. Tough one for Billy Fraser, his 2nd consecutive finish, very likely outside the top 10. He's now got by his teammate Jacob Douglas and is trying to set out to see if he can't reel in Evagoras Papasavas to go to 15th position. It'll be a fight for him to potentially get to Victor Anderson because the field here is just so evenly matched. Even though Fraser did qualify significantly better up front, the simple fact is that this field separated on time by less than a second. So it's not like you're making up tons and tons of gap time every lap. We do see Nikita Johnson working his way up. He's been able to get by Anderson, and he is now on the gearbox of Jorge Garcia. So Johnson, who went off on the opening circuit, turn number 2, fighting his way back up, and maybe able to scrap his way back up into a top 10. It's not done yet for him with 8 laps remaining. As 12 laps have gone into the books, a 1.5-second lead for Michael D'Orlando. And actually, look at the fast laps of the race right now. It's actually Johnson and Fraser. 123 flat for Johnson, 123.1 for Billy Fraser. Those guys are running front row times as they're trying to work their way back forward here now. But again, just see that they can't get a scrap back, a point here and a point there. Simon, how impressed are you right now with Michael D'Orlando? Here's a guy that was challenged, came in as the point leader, was battling super early. I was a little surprised by how hard he battled early in that opening race. I thought he might have settled in a bit and tried to pull away with Rowe, but battled hard, got into a couple incidents. Chase Denmark was in there, a bunch of drivers getting aggressive on the opening circuits. Presses that reset button, sets himself this morning, comes back for a 2nd place finish. Now he's back into the lead. This is definitely, as Steve Wick and I talked about in the pre-race show, kind of stopping the bleeding of what's happening with Rowe having such a fantastic weekend. If he's able to win here, that's the momentum you want to take. You've stopped Miles' momentum, grabbed your own, going into Toronto in just 2 weeks' time.
Especially when you have 2 guys that are in a title fight like this, running 1-2 all weekend, you're obviously going to be thinking about the point swings and how they can happen. To recover some points here is going to be a great mental boost to go into Toronto with for D'Orlando here. And this 3rd race has been an incredible drive so far. I've been looking at the times. He's been incredibly consistent throughout this race and holding back that pressure from Miles Rowe.
And that's one of the things, guys, you'll see from everybody up front. The drivers that when the cream rises to the top in the 2nd half of the season, it's the consistency at the times, not just the outright blinding speed, but able to do that lap after lap after lap. And for D'Orlando, really only 1 step to go on the championship ladder. He finished 2nd last year to Kiko Porto in the championship fight. Oh, so close to grabbing that scholarship to move up to the Indy Pro 2000 category. And that's why he came back to USF 2000, only 1 goal, and that was to win the scholarship. And he needs to battle out with Miles Rowe. Toronto, of course, a brand new race for both those drivers. Neither of them have raced in Toronto. This is the drivers at the very start of the road to Indy. They haven't been here. We haven't raced there in 3 years since 2019. So for both those drivers, they're going to go in there. It's not even on iRacing. It's not on, you really can't even practice on that racetrack, and you never know. It's always different every year. That should be really interesting. A complete level playing field for both drivers when we get to Toronto.
And that's going to be an interesting one to watch. Obviously, both their teams have been there in the past, but the drivers themselves haven't. So now we really get to see what their teams and the drivers can come up with in terms of setup and lap time.
Laps winding down, as I had said before. They put lap 14 in the books last time by. D'Orlando very consistent up front here right now. We're watching Johnson work his way past Garcia. Now he's trying to get up to Jackson Lee. Johnson running in the 12th position, only a couple of tenths of a second behind Lee, and was quicker by 4 tenths of a second last time by. So 14 years of age, Nikita Johnson's been testing a USF 2000 car for the past year and a bit. Runs in the USF Juniors program, the new program that Anderson Promotions launched this year to really start developing drivers for USF 2000. That program will have a brand new car next year, the Tatis JR23. Very similar to the same tub and engine that we have here in USF 2000. It'll have different wheels, different suspension, and a restricted engine package, so a little slower for the drivers coming up, but it's going to be a great opportunity. Nikita races in USF Junior. We used the Ligier chassis this year, but man, when you want to make a debut, this is how you do it. He ends up going to Road America as his debut, just turned 14 years of age, enough to run Road America. He ends up finishing with an 8th place finish there, was running top 5 in race 1 yesterday before a flat tire. Got a top 5 finish here earlier today, and is now trying to charge his way back forward. It's not going to be a top 5, Simon, for Nikita, but this guy is showing what he's got. He started back, put his head down, he's turning the fastest laps of anybody on the racetrack and fighting to get himself up into the top 10.
Absolutely. He's driven well all weekend. Unfortunately, he hasn't been in that fight for a podium. Some incidents here and there, but he's absolutely had the pace to be up there at the front. Bodes
well for 2023. He'll finish off the season in USF Juniors, and we expect to see him in USF 2000 next season as, again, one of the rookies that could definitely battle it out for either Rookie of the Year or potentially even an outright championship. One of the things this year, and Simon, you can speak of this because you've never really had a chance to have a full season. Simon's one of those guys you put in a group that is unbelievably talented, puts together rides, wins runoffs, wins events, goes to Team USA, but has never had a full season of USF 2000 racing. In my 20 years, probably the biggest travesty, I think, that you've never been able to do a full season. But when you get to come back for that second season, you know, it's always been common thought that it's 2 years, right? We saw Kyle Kirkwood, Oliver Askew, some of these guys come in with Cape Motorsports 1 year in USF 2000 and move on. This year we've seen the top 10 in points, only one rookie, and that was Jagger Jones. Everybody else second-year drivers. I don't know if it's just this car, whatever it may be, probably because they're learning the racetracks. Most drivers in Indy Pro 2000 came up in USF, so they know the racetracks. That second year, especially when they're younger, they're such different drivers. They're more mature. The second-year drivers, those sophomores, always stand up to the top.
Absolutely. We've seen it throughout this field. I mean, our top 3 currently are all second-year drivers that drove well last year and have been improved since then.
Look at this battle here right now. Fantastic scrap. I want to say that's Christian Weir potentially trying to work his way forward. We got a lot of drivers battling it up. We've got as well Thomas Naveau not that far behind Dylan Christie. Jagger Jones is right there as well. Christian Weir's got Garg and Hayes and Johnson all within a second behind them. This is some tremendous racing. D'Orlando across the line. Here comes the top 3. They got a huge gap back, over 5 seconds to Lockie Hughes, who leads them coming through the carousel. We'll stack them up on the front straightaway once again. There you go. That right there is Christie, Naveau, and then you got Johnson. Then you got the next group with Weir, Garg, Johnson by Hayes. Nikita Johnson into the top 10. Hayes runs 11th. Garcias in 12th. Lee in 12th, Garcias in 13th, Anderson 14th, and Jacob Douglas now up into 15th position. Is what happened to Billy Fraser just coming across the line. He dropped back a couple of spots again. Douglas now up to 15th, Papasavas 16th, Fraser 17th, Dzelski down a lap, as is Kohlbecker, and of course, as we said, Nick D'Orlando out on lap number 2. 3 laps remain here in USF 2000. If you're tuning into the broadcast here on the Road to Indy TV app or on the Road to Indy TV YouTube channel, don't go anywhere. We'll have the Victory Lane presentations and then right in to the driver introductions and call to fire the engines in the Indy Pro 2000 category, which will cap off the day's action here at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. And it'll cap off the Road to Indy component as well, at least for the first 2 rungs. Indy Lights, of course, will run tomorrow, but USF 2000 and Indy Pro will be done here this evening, having completed their double-header and triple-header events. Oh, big wiggle coming down. I'm not sure who that was further back in the pack who had a big off. It was, I think, potentially Anderson who almost tossed it off down there in turn number 6. Let's get back to the action now. There is Weir, who has worked his way to the 8th position. Christian Weir, 8th, started 9th. In the middle of that fight, right behind him. I think that may be Nikita Johnson now up into the 9th spot. Indeed, Johnson up into 9th. Laps coming into the end here. Simon, 2 laps to go. And we've seen guys work their way back to the front.
Absolutely. Nikita's done a great job here. He's been turning some of the fastest laps all race. His pace has been pretty incredible throughout this event. All weekend he's been fast. Unfortunately, some incidents have set him back in some of the races, but he's showing his maturity in that he's not getting down on himself, and he's pushing forward to just do the best he can.
That's it. As a young driver, this is when you really look for the positives, right? You didn't get the results you maybe hoped for, but make sure you stay focused on the positives at hand to try to take that into the next event. Of course, he'll be back on the racetrack here next weekend. The USF Juniors program, part of the NASCAR truck program here at Mid-Ohio. So we're all coming back for one more next weekend. This is a tremendous battle further back as well. That is Weir having it out here right now. Christian Weir scrapping it out with Nikita Johnson, who tries to go around the outside. Johnson, I believe, has done it. He has worked his way up into 8th. Nikita Johnson back into the 8th position. Again, the second fastest lap of the race as Michael D'Orlando resets fast lap, and that is huge for this championship. That's a bonus point as well. White flag flying. 1 to go. They're showing the 1 to go sign here. Final lap on the racetrack for USF 2000 to cap off this triple header. It's D'Orlando up by 3.1 seconds, doing a tremendous job. Denmark, Rowe, Hughes, and Christie, the top 5. Although Dylan Christie's got Thomas Nauvoo ready to challenge for the position. Through turn number 1. And D'Orlando has responded. That is the lead right there, back to Jace Denmark. Denmark getting through Rowe as well. I didn't see that happen. That was last lap. Jace Denmark has gone into the 2nd position. That's going to close him up in the championship as well to the leader, Miles Rowe. So this is big for Denmark to get closer. Jace Denmark runs in 2nd. And again, potentially Miles Rowe potentially going off in turn number 1. Not sure what happened there with Miles pushing turn 1. We've seen a lot of drivers struggle with the opening corner here today. But this is the final lap on the track. Denmark jumping up into 2nd for a little miscue there for Miles. He'll drop to 3rd. That's going to even give more of an advantage for the driver coming out of Thunder Valley. He was challenged all weekend long, came as the point leader, and will cap as the final race winner to take the momentum to Toronto out of the final couple of corners. The winner on race 3 in the Cooper Tires USF 2000 Championship here in Mid-Ohio is Michael D'Orlando. Big victory for D'Orlando and Cape Motorsports as he wins over Jace Denmark by 3.3 seconds. Miles Rowe, after the off in turn 1, ends up in the 3rd spot. We got 2 drivers together further back in the pack. That is a wreck from Garcias and Lee. Jackson Lee, I believe, and Jorge Garcias into the wall coming through the carousel. Actually, the entry into the carousel coming up out of the corner. You see the Hamaltro safety crew already rolling. 2 drivers hard off the racetrack. Hopefully we can get a quick replay of that before we have to head down to Victory Lane. But that shakes things up a little bit. And it's kind of a help, at least for Billy Fraser. He ends up coming back to 14th as Garcias and Lee get collected coming down into turn number 11 and 12. Here is the replay. We're going to get a chance to see this as they come back out. As they come over out of Thunder Valley through turn number 11. Let's see what happens. You wonder if somebody dropped a wheel. No, they're side by side coming up through there. Garcias gets pushed off the racetrack to the inside with Lee. He's 4 wheels off, shoots back across the exit curbing. Right into the side of Jackson Lee, ends up losing the right rear of that machine. The contact throwing it up in the air. He goes into a clockwise turn. Man, you hate to see that in the final lap, especially when you're racing. They're probably racing for, I think, 13th or 14th.
Yeah, it's a tough spot. Turn 11 it's a fast left-hand kink where you typically don't see passing. Obviously, it's the last lap, but drivers want to go for it. But these things can happen. You just have to sometimes manage your expectations. If it's a day where you finish 15th, sometimes it's just better to finish 15th.
That's it. Here's your unofficial results. Michael D'Orlando with the win over Jace Denmark and Miles Rowe. Pabst Racing, 2 drivers on the podium in all 3 races here this weekend. Lockie Hughes coming back to P4. Good run for Lockie. Dylan Christie, his best run of the season, ends up P5 ahead of Thomas Nauvoo and Jagger Jones. Nikita Johnson, who was last at the end of the opening lap, scraps his way back up to 8th. A tremendous drive for the young 14-year-old. Bajoy Garg and Christian Weir rounding out the top 10. 11th went to Nicky Hayes. 12th, Victor Anderson. 13th, Jacob Douglas ahead of his teammate Billy Fraser. Evagoras Papasavas ends up in 15th. Danny Dzelski and Spike Kohlbecker. And then, of course, the contact between Jackson Lee and Jorge Garcias put those drivers to the tail of the field. 18th and 19th ahead of the DNF driver, Nicholas D'Orlando. Don't go anywhere. We're going to head down to Victory Lane here right now and celebrate the run of Michael D'Orlando. Indy Pro 2000 drivers on the pre-grid right now, getting ready to fire things up. Simon Sykes, don't go anywhere either. We're going to use you once again, as we'll be back right up here, folks. We got more racing to come to cap off the day with Indy Pro 2000. So, ladies and gentlemen, down here in Victory Lane, we'll get things right underway right now as we have the drivers who have capped off a triple header in the Cooper Tires USF 2000 Championship. We saw a lot of action, not so much up front, a lot of it more mid-pack and back. The drivers who are up on the podium here, the top three in the points right now. The cream, as they say, does rise to the top, and that's what we have here today. Let's get things underway to bring up the top three in the podium of the Cooper Tires Grand Prix of Mid-Ohio. A round of applause for the driver coming home in third for Pabst Racing, Miles Rowe. Miles, your point leader. And to present him with his third place trophy, one of our guests from Cooper Tires, Steph Young. Thank you, Steph. So Miles Rowe will leave Mid-Ohio with the point lead, heading to the streets of Toronto with his third place finish here today. Was running second before an off in turn number one, but nonetheless capping things off here. Coming home in second position, he'll gain up some points here as well. Another podium, 3 straight here this weekend for Pabst Racing. Put your hands together for Jace Denmark. P2 for Jace. Tight in this championship up in a big way, and to present him with his trophy, it'll be Phil Wells, one of our guests from Cooper Tires, bringing Jason another piece of hardware. He's been collecting a few of those throughout this season, a winner earlier in the year, but this top 3 in points definitely heating up as we have 5 more races remaining. Crucial victory for this driver here, though. Came in with a point lead, had an issue in the opening race, come back to second in race number 2, and the win here definitely limiting the damage on the weekend, finishing as your race winner for Cape Motorsports. A round of applause for Michael D'Orlando. Michael, you've had a lot of race wins. This was a big one. This is one of the ones you needed.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, I didn't get off to a good start this weekend. Race 1 out with that little incident there. But, yeah, I came back in race 2 with that second place, although it wasn't exactly what we wanted with this kid over here running away with it. But, yeah, this is definitely what we needed. Obviously, we're a little bit of points down right now, but this gives me momentum back. It helps. It's really easing on the mind. But honestly, I couldn't do without with you guys. Cape Motorsports, Rising Star Racing, DB Collaborative, my family. That's all here. Thank you so much for making this possible, and let's get this next one at Toronto, right?
That's it. We're going to Toronto. Get up on top here, man. Congratulations, Michael D'Orlando, folks, with the race win. Let's bring that trophy in for him. And that'll be Audrey Mariquin from Cooper Tires going to bring that trophy in. And again, Michael D'Orlando, the energetic driver from Hartsdale, New York. Again, limiting the damage here with a fantastic drive out front, and even maybe more key at the end. He did not have the fast lap of the race. There's a bonus point for that. That was Nikita Johnson. Team got on the radio and said, "This is what we need from you." He put his head down, got the job done. Fast lap of the race right at the end to get that bonus point to tighten things up even more as we head, as we said, to the streets of Toronto in just a couple of weeks' time. Just 5 more races to go to cap off this season as we have a doubleheader in Toronto on the streets where none of these drivers have been. I had mentioned that in the broadcast. It's been 3 years since we've raced there. None of these guys were in USF 2000, so a complete level playing field for everybody involved in USF 2000. And then from there to Portland for a triple-header finale on the Labor Day weekend to see which driver will win that scholarship worth over $360,000 to be able to work their way in to the Indy Pro 2000 program in 2023. One of these drivers will be a very deserving winner. I think the champagne's coming. I think we've got all the shots that we need. Again, 1 more race to go, Indy Pro 2000. Don't go anywhere if you're watching here on Road to Indy TV or on the Road to Indy TV YouTube channel. Guys, you've got time. You got a couple weeks to wash these suits. Feel free to give them a rip. Time to celebrate, folks. Michael D'Orlando with the race win. Jace Denmark in second. And Miles Rowe finishing in third spot as Denmark going after D'Orlando in a big way. USF 2000 done here trackside. I think I'll be able to work my way, John Fippin, out onto pit lane as the celebration continues down here. I'll do the intros, the driver intros, and the command from pit lane, John. Thank you so much. I'll be back up there to join you here in a few minutes.